Are you surprised the kind of bump up that we've seen? 25,000 crore rupees for the first time ever. And we were just discussing for all this, with all that FI outflows, with a bunch of IPOs and guzzlers at that, big ones, and the kind of market volatility and weakness as well.
No, so I'm not surprised because I think, frankly, the way I see it, October is in some sense a tale of two halves. I think in the first half of October, as markets started to correct, we actually saw a lot of momentum in terms of flows because I think there was enough amount of money on the sidelines. And to some degree, that momentum of flows, I think, has dropped a bit in the second half and probably in early November. But nothing to me suggests that retail investors are looking to redeem or take a re-look at their portfolios. I think from a domestic flow perspective, I think even with the drop in markets over the last month and a bit, I think sentiment is broadly intact. I wouldn't say it's the same as it was in August and September. It's dropped a bit, but I don't think it's dropped enough for flows to be a concern.
So the sentiment has taken a bit of a pause at the moment, of course, but not anything which is falling off the cliff, because that's very clear in the number as well, 25,000 crore SIP yet again. But Anthony, any sense as to whether the data is flowing more towards large cap because it's doubled, it's coming in at a low base but still has doubled, or any shift per se from, let's say, SMIDs to large caps?
No, and actually, curiously, as you've seen, large caps have actually underperformed the market in October, right? I think the reason for that is probably that's where the bulk of the FI outflow has happened. To me, if at all there's a clearer trend, it is the following. One is, I think there is a much larger preference for flexi cap and multi-cap funds. Number two, in fact, that's the data doesn't show on the outside, but one of the things that I am most encouraged is that this is the highest number ex NFOs, right? Typically in any other month, you had 35, 40,000 crore flows, of which 10 to 12,000 is NFOs. This month, NFOs have accounted for probably 3,500, 4,000 crores, and we still have a lump sum flow of over 40,000. So I think it's evenly distributed. I wouldn't believe that there's a trend shift towards large cap. I don't think there's a trend shift away from flexi, away from small and mid. If at all I had to make a call, I would say flexi and multi-cap funds. And we are seeing a lot of interest. I don't think it shows in the numbers as yet. I think it will show in November. I think hybrid and multi-asset funds are also becoming a category which people are looking a lot more avidly at.
Okay, point taken. But help me understand this NFO bid that you were talking about. Of course, there were a lot of them a couple of months ago. The pace has slowed down. Is that something that you're also witnessing? And hence, of course, the flows will also get impacted at least towards the NFO to that extent?
So I think it's a bit tactical and technical. Let me just explain. If markets are falling and I want to invest, my inclination is therefore to invest in an open-ended ongoing fund and put my money to work, right? Because an NFO obviously has a period of collection and then it gets deployed. So I think it's probably more to do with that. I mean, I know we did an NFO in the month of June, and you know, with the election results, etc., there was a lot of volatility. We curiously saw more money come into our ongoing funds in the same week of our NFO. And the reason was pretty simple. If I'm looking to bottom fish or enter the markets because there's a decline, I'd much rather do it in a fund that's currently on and my money goes to work immediately. So I think that probably explains some of the NFO collections dropping. I don't think it's a reflection that people are taking a view that NFOs are not as good as they were in the past. I've anyways made the point multiple times over. I think the best route for an investor is stay diversified, buy an existing open-ended fund with track record, and buy NFOs only if they add some differentiation to the portfolio. Otherwise, stick to existing funds.
And you know, it's interesting, Anthony, that we've seen the similar amount of interest for both SMID schemes as well as large cap funds. And I think it's very important to tell our viewers right now that you've got to have a diversified portfolio. Of course, if your risk appetite is really less, then go more for large cap schemes. But so the small cap schemes have actually given better return than large cap focused funds.
Yeah, and I think that, if you ask me, the reason is technical, because a lot of the FI selling that has happened in October most likely would have happened much more in the large cap stocks, right? So I think while valuations are probably in favor of large caps, just the sheer amount of selling volumes would have meant that large caps have underperformed small and mids in October. I don't think that's a trend that will hold, let's say, over the next 6 months or a year. But equally, I think, when you look at possible sector opportunities, stock opportunities, it's impossible to make a call that they're going to all come in large cap or they're all going to come in small or mid, which is why I think you're seeing a large amount of diversification of flows between these categories. And frankly, the category that you choose if you can't make up your mind is flexi and multi-cap.